Check, check. Quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
Oh, good afternoon, Coach Jay. Can hear you loud and clear on this very balanced day.
Very balanced day for sure. Welcome to all of our buzzer beaters. Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. Uh, I'm Coach Jay, been a top step performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years in the futures markets for the past 6, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep since April of 2023. I've been involved in the futures trading industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share some of my experiences and some wisdom and perhaps help you become a better trader and
Awesome.
myself too.
I've definitely become a better trader throughout this process of coaching over the last almost 2 years now. Definitely become a better trader, and it's just by the nature of having to explain your process and really stick to the basics when we're describing things to traders. So traders, thank you all
Yeah,
for helping us become better.
absolutely. The old saying is, as you teach, you learn. Just
For
as you
sure.
describe.
Something I learned today, while on Topstep TV, and I don't want to get his name incorrect, Almir. I learned that Almir at 20 years old had more maturity than I could even imagine at that age, and even maybe even now. Right, that was a really fun segment to do. We didn't really talk about trades. We didn't put on any trades. Just really getting into, and if you haven't watched it, I will definitely go back and watch it. The 2 p.m. segment on Top Step TV. Almir he's a funded trader, 20 years old, been trading for a year with Top Step and really like a year and a half in general. Pulled out 100K in payouts, but I don't think the 100K in payouts was the impressive part. Even though that is extremely impressive, it was his approach, right? Coach, if that was me at 20 years old, you couldn't tell me shit. All right, I'm just
I knew it all.
I'm just gonna be straight up honest. You couldn't tell me anything. So shout out to Almir for being extremely, uh, you know,
Wise at his young age.
wise, mature in his age, 100%. Um,
Yeah, that was very impressive. Check
yeah,
it out if you get the chance.
100%. But let's get into these markets, Coach. Let's get into these markets. As far as news goes, we did have some news out early this morning. We had initial jobless claims come out at 2.4%. Forecast was 2.3%. Uh, GDP number came out as well, 2.3%. Forecast was 2.4. And I read those jobless claims numbers wrong. They were 224,000. Forecast was 225,000. I think I'm gonna start needing glasses soon. Uh, Anything else
Here,
you just pass them over?
I
Uh,
don't I don't need them. I just use them when I have to.
right. Anything else you got on the news, Coach? Anything that we should have been paying attention to, or maybe I glossed over?
Well, there was some executive orders signed, but that happens on any day that ends in Y.
Right.
Um, I think right now we can go over the tech reasons, but this market is waiting for next week to see how this tariff situation works out. Starting, what is that? Tuesday?
April 2nd, Tuesday, April 2nd. Unless we hear, hey, April 1st, April Fools, no tariffs. All right. What a time.
So that's the news. And we can see in today's action, um, there was balance across the board.
We are also coming to the end of the month. I believe not. It's not today. Monday will be the last trading day of the month, and then the last trading day of Q1. right? So we can look forward to that as well. All right, let's get into the charts. There are 35 different markets we can trade with Topstep accounts. Uh, Micro Ethereum is no longer on the list, Coach. But two,
Darn, I was just becoming a 50 lot trader there.
right, making $20 a day. That'd be pretty nice, actually. To the downside today, we had the Mexican peso down 0.69%, wheat futures down 0.7%, and copper, our biggest percentage mover to the downside, at 2.3%. Remember, copper made a new all-time high yesterday. We saw and we went over what that liquidation move looked like in copper, and since that point, that market has been selling off. Here's that liquidation move
There's a
here.
blow off top.
Yep. Here that is here. Oh man, I gotta change this. Change this to strong magnets. I don't like that. But yeah, we rejected right at that price again. Remember, we said there maybe there weren't necessarily convinced buyers up above those prices. We rejected a couple of times. This is a 5 minute chart. It looked a little different on the three, but same thing, same idea here, right? When we trade back up to these prices, buyers aren't convinced enough, and we're seeing some selling from that zone.
It's interesting. They had, from that chart, VWAP left the opening range, and it looked, but this further convinces me that there's kind of a blow off top with that action that we went through yesterday. And it came back to test it early. And, at that point, it looked really good. Like, okay, here we go again. But man, when volume came in, it wasn't to buy later on into that range.
No, it was not. To the upside, we had platinum up 2.06%, silver up 3.21%, and soybean oil up 3.8% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. To talk about our big four, we had the S&Ps down 0.33%, crude oil up 0.27%, gold making new all-time highs up 1.53%, and the Nasdaq down 0.6%, currently trading under that major 20,000 level in the Nasdaq, down 0.6% to round out our big four. I'm going to pull up a Nasdaq chart here, Coach. We go out to a daily really quick. What are you seeing on the daily at the end of the day
No,
today?
um, we failed. We closed under that 20-day moving average yesterday after that engulfing candle. Today, we found resistance at the 20-day. This looks really heavy to me, Coach. I don't, it rejected, there was look at the volume. For a small range, when we had a small range today, the average true range is still around, there's around 445. We had a 260 point range. So, but look at the volume, almost a bigger volume than I would have thought.
Almost, it was more volume than yesterday
It was
with
the
a big
biggest
range.
volume of the week.
Yep. Yes, it was.
I, well, that actually, it's the first time I looked at that. That's unfriendly to the upside. Why it's picking up volume on the way down under the 20 after the engulfing candle. Let's do a quick trend line off the lows of the move. Yeah, we're right there. Wow. Yeah, I'm just shocked. I would have that volume. I would have thought it was smaller volume. So further ahead, this looks very heavy to me. I'll be trading it from the short side. It can go up without me. How about yourselves?
Yeah, this looks very heavy, closing under that 20,000 level, closing under and using that 20 moving average, which we know the market likes to use. Trending markets, we've identified kind of like to use that 20 moving average when they trend, uh, and we use that as a resistance today. Yeah, this does look heavy, and we talked about what this bounce had the potential to be, right? We were short for almost a month, for a full month. We had rollover and maybe some short covering. But once we start to get directional again, is there a buyer in this upside move that's convinced enough to continue trading prices higher? And we just have not seen that, right? The markets haven't held a bid since mid-February, and that really has not changed. Uh, so, you know, I'm not going to, we've done the go back in time and look at 2022 enough times now, but it's similar, right? From a technical perspective, these markets are not holding any of these, any of these areas where you would think buyers are. Now, what happens with this consolidation area? Do we sit and find balance here again? All the way down to 19,300s, but no, these markets look heavy.
Yeah. Um,
Higher
is
time
it?
frame bear flag.
Yeah. And then that is almost a classic bear flag. And notice that 200 is moving average is flat. It's
Yesterday it was at I had to remember. Yesterday was at 962. Today is at 957.
all right. So now it's turning.
Right.
It's it, now if we look think about a longer term. It's definitely lost its momentum. I might have a flair for the obvious, but that is what that represents. Um, it looks like if it goes lower, I believe it's going to pick up momentum.
Yep.
So let's look at the day.
Let's look at the day. I'm gonna switch over to the S&Ps because it looks like we got a couple more questions about S&Ps when we look at the daily. Or sorry, when we look at intraday today, on a daily time frame, the S&P looks very similar to the Nasdaq. It's almost the exact same chart using that 20 moving average as a resistance. 57.64 is that 20 moving average. But let's go out to the daily, coach. The one thing that everyone was looking for to fill was the gap, the
The gap.
weekly gap that we had. We did it. We
We
did it, Joe.
we did it, and then we
Uh,
found a 5,000 lot buyer.
right.
That was the S&Ps where that came in, wasn't it?
Yes, that was in the S&P. That was in the S&P. So, if we look at the overnight session last night, Dakota was talking about this a little bit during slow markets. We traded almost right on the open. We traded almost exactly to 50% of that gap in the S&P. We did it in the Nasdaq as well. 57.30. That price in the Nasdaq was 20,010. We bounced right at it, and it looked like, I thought, hey, maybe we have the potential to trade back into yesterday's range, right? We saw almost a 2% down day in the Nasdaq. We had about a 1.25% down day in the S&P. And sometimes what we'll see, coach, is that, fill to at least 50% of that range. So before we got the price action that we did, this looked pretty good to the upside, just accepting back inside yesterday's range. Uh, for a decent long trade off of the middle of that gap. But anything you got for the overnight? Or do we want to look at what the New York session finally did?
Well, what's interesting here is look how flat this. But this is a balanced. When I go back to my profile days,
Hmm.
this is called a fat profile.
Okay.
That middle, like that middle price traded almost every half an hour. It went one way or the other. Now after yesterday's break, look at that. That's like with uh, um, that opening last night. Actually came down to my first, literally to almost, it came down to what, 38, 35, which was near my 22 support for a night. But That's a night move right off. So how much volume is it going to be? I guess that was from the auto tariff
I believe so.
news. The rally, big rally. Well, I can't say big, a decent rally, a big rally for the night, but that was it. I mean, it just went sideways and with some wicking on the bottom. Just that to me is the definition of a dead cat bounce.
Yep.
This also looks very weak to me. So
Yeah. Let me put the gap back on there. There we go. So let's see. Let's see what we had. So we saw the overnight session. We bounced from the 50% of that gap. Let's then change this to regular trading hours and look at what we had here. Really just a continuation of yesterday's move, or kind of settling at the low of yesterday's move. We did have right on that open. Let's go down to a shorter time frame, coach. Right on that open, we had a nice short right off the opening range. They wasted no time getting down to the low of that gap and said, okay, everybody wants it to fill. Let's get it out of the way early, so we can go about our day. So in the first 12 minutes of the market, we filled that gap to the low. 57.20 was the low of that gap to the tick we traded to it. So it's good to measure these things out. Shout out to Coach Hoop and Jack on Fast Markets who bought it right there. Is that a scary trade to take? Maybe, because the market is using, selling off 20 points with no pullbacks into it, but on a higher time frame, it makes sense, right? No one was talking about selling through the gap and another 1,000 points lower. Everyone was just saying, hey, that gap needs to fill. So once it fills, I think that is a not low probability, probably a high probability, and also low risk trade, right? How much do you really have to pay to figure out whether or not that is going to hold, right? You set your entry there, you can go 5, 10 points. If it continues to go, then okay, I'm wrong. Maybe that gap doesn't hold and we continue to sell. But if it stops there, Jack was talking about, and I don't hate this trade idea. He was talking about putting on a 10 lot, risking $5,000 and then just going with it, right? Because of how high probability that was. And I don't hate that trade idea. We didn't put it on, but the next time we have an opening gap like that for the week, that might be something to consider. Everything we talk about here is for educational purposes only and not a suggestion to take a trade or trading advice. Manage your risk and please make your own trading decisions.
you said, I mean, it could be a scary trade if you didn't have risk on, if you didn't manage it, if you didn't even define it, because then you're
Right.
dealing with hope. But I was short. I was like, bullshit. No, I wasn't. But as soon as we turned around, we broke back through the opening range. I took my small loss and I really stopped trading it for the day. This is the second day in a row. What I found interesting, if we go to the first 3 minute or 5 minute, frame that out.
Right here. Let's change the colors on that. There we go.
Now let's go yesterday and do the same thing. See the difference? That first 5 minutes or that VWAP. When we talk about today, this is a classic. Yesterday was a classic trend day. Today, it was a lot more V whip.
Yeah.
But look at
V whip instead of VWAP.
Yeah, exactly. Now, can you predict that?
Nope.
No, but we'll go back to that's why you have to have your trading plan and take appropriate losses and let your winners ride. Today was it reminded me of my days when I profile in the pit. That happened a lot more often. and we could see it. Um, you could almost hear it in the pit, but here electronically we can see it through volume.
Yep.
That that first half an hour volume was the highest of the day. It was buying, and then we had the first hour initial balance slowed down. Kind of that was a sign. If we go back to the first hour or first half, look at the today's it's the biggest volume of the day until the close. Um, Interesting. What what price level did it hit?
Uh, on the
Yesterday's
upside, you're talking about?
VWAP.
Yeah, yesterday's
Yeah.
VWAP. Yep.
Um,
Rejected right off of that. That two-day VWAP is, we don't talk about it here often.
mhm.
It's a great level, great level to look at. VWAP from the prior day, right? Not every market participant is a shorter time frame market participant. So, all of this selling that we had come in here, if they're still in the market, this is a nice area to look for a potential opportunity, either a target or, where I'm starting to get into a short, and we can see the market respected that two-day VWAP the entire time. Uh,
And if you're looking for a breakout to the upside, you could buy that there. Um, but understand with because we don't, and that's a really that 2 day VWAP is like I forget to keep that on because then I get like 10,000 different
right.
um, VWAPs. But that 2 day, especially after the big day we had to the downside yesterday. And what does that tell us? That longer term sellers are still there. Look at the next time we went to touch it.
Yep, rejected right off of it again in Power Hour, and we could see it. If you delete all the drawings, it was a range bound day today, right? If we have VWAP from the New York session open, it's pretty flat outside of this initial move. I do want to talk a little bit about what happened here, but this is pretty flat. So, do we need the lines on the chart to see the range? No, but when you have these visual cues here, to me, it's a reminder of, hey, yes, we're in a range bound market, but when I get here, if there's not another buyer in the world that wants to trade above these prices and I buy it, I'm just asking to take a losing trade, in my opinion. Um,
We used to call that Pete Stottlemyre would call that price discovery.
right,
You're just trying to discover, and it's you, right?
right,
With my one or two lot, and it's not going to. It's against the size. Think
right.
about that. VWAP is measuring the size. So you can do it, but understand you can't give it time. It's got to go.
Correct. Speaking of gotta go, we did have, and if you were watching Topstep TV, if you're watching Fast Markets, there was a couple of we gotta go now price action moves that we saw, and I don't recall which one of these candles it was. Quant Tower closed. But we got two pretty big spikes of volume here. In one of these, I don't remember exactly which one it was. There was 5,000 contracts that
That
pretty
was
much.
this one above VWAP. The
So
first one above that
yeah,
was
it
it.
was it was the one that crossed above VWAP. So when that happens, we talk about not fighting flow. Were all 5,000 contracts traded to the buy side? No, but in this 3 minute candle, or in the 1 minute candle, actually, it was positive 1,700 delta. What does that mean? That there were more market order buys than sells. We don't know whether that or not that person was buying, or that person, the entity, whoever it is, that market participant, we don't know whether or not they're buying to open or buying to close a position. But when you see somebody trade that much volume, it's like, okay, maybe that's who we need to pay attention to, right? And if we look at that and we frame out that high volume candle, let me take everything else off of the charts and just frame out that high volume. We'll attach a VWAP to that as well. The market respected that range for the rest of the day, right? Every time we came back down there, coach, right to 50% of it, we are bouncing off of it. And I think it's, go ahead, coach.
You had the delta after that buy was
Hmm.
positive 1700, right?
Just in a 1 minute candle, correct?
In a 1 minute candle. So that 1700 is the imbalance. Think of it that way. I think of when I was filling orders. I never filled a 5,000 lot.
Hmm.
Um, but this is what they just they took, they sweep the market. Just like it gets hit and it goes. Now, out of that 5,000, how many were from market makers? How many were from resting orders? How many were from spreaders? All that calculated after it was done, there was 1,700 buy orders that were in the market. That's the
Right.
way to think. So, what is the imbalance? And it reflected in that sharp, literal U-turn in VWAP.
Yeah. That was the candle that closed us back above VWAP, and we traded on both sides of it, but that changed the tone for the day. And you know, think about for me, I like to think about who might be buyers in this range here. We had the gap from Sunday. We sold off all day yesterday into it. We talked about maybe there are some, maybe not everyone in this short is a day trader, right? Some people might be swing trading these shorts. We get down, we close the gap. Is it a coincidence that right after we close that gap, we get 5,000, almost 5,000 contracts that go straight to market? I don't think so. We close the gap. I cover my shorts. Coach, if you are, let's say you have a 1,500 lot position, and this is just hypothetical. Again, we don't know what the intentions of any market participant are. Just stick with me for a second. Coach, if from this high you were short, you built a position, you were short 1,500 contracts, you had 100 points in your favor, do you necessarily care about where you get out of that short?
Well, that's it. I think it took about 7 or 8 points. What was the
16.
range of that? Huh?
That 3 minute candle was about six. Oh, so actually, you know what? We'll go down to and we're doing a lot of analysis right here, but that's okay. We'll go down to Jack's 1 second chart, right? I really like that Jack started using this. I use something similar
One
in
second
Quantality,
chart.
1 second chart, because that move happened in 1 second. Uh,
So
we
that's a market order.
correct.
That's what we call the sweep order.
So
Sweep the book.
here's the bigger one actually. It was at 9:54 in 16 seconds, right? So 8 point range, 5,000 contracts traded in an 8 point range in a second. To
Okay,
me,
there it was. Yeah,
right,
that's the order.
right,
So they bought everything in the in the book at the time that they could.
right,
You
right,
can actually there's a buy up to 5,000. Don't care what the price is really. You hit
right.
it on the head.
If I'm short and I'm 100 points up, hey, just get me out of here. I'm good. I'll take the profits, right? I'll pay whatever to get out of this trade. And after we close that gap, and what to me, what's interesting about it, and we're doing a volume deep dive here, is that we saw it happen for we closed the gap and they did some of it, and then it was the rest of it, and then we really didn't have a directional move for the rest of the day. Couple questions we have here in the S&P. Brad says, please talk about 5770 in the S&P. 5770 in the S&P. Let's take a look. Where's my line? Horizontal line. 5770. ES level hit twice overnight, then 10:30 a.m. Central Time, big volume bar down, starts 5770. 5770 holds again at 11:20 Central Time. What is going on at 5770? Brad, good observation. That 5770 lines up with what else did we see on the charts? That 2 day view up is right around that area, right around that general area. Is there a market participant sitting out there at 5770 and selling every time we get to it? I wasn't really watching the order books like that today, but there could be. But whatever it is, there was a seller here that said, "You shall not go any further." Um, because I'm going to sell it every time. Or there was just not enough convinced buyers above that price to get there. Go ahead, Coach.
The 200 moving average was at 80, the high of the day, on the half hour.
On the half hour.
Yeah.
In the S&P.
I'm
Oh,
looking
you
at
know
the
what?
S&P.
I have it on regular trading hours. There you go. 57.80. There you go. Yep.
That was the high. Also, I had it as my pivot point for the day. So that, I mean, the pivot point is the fair price, or you would look, if you think of profile terms, it's the fat part of the profile. And that pivot was from yesterday's drop, which was today's high. So in most of that early buying that 5,000 lot could be institution. It's towards the end of the month. We have 2 days left.
Yep.
Stocks are on sale. Scoops them up. But it surely didn't ignite a rally.
No.
So that 70 areas off that high, yeah, to me, there are no magical numbers. There's levels that you trade off as yourself. Like, this is a level I want to either buy it or sell it, add some volume information to it, whatever. And it's part of a trading plan. But when you get volume like that, that's institutional. That starts to set the tone. I'm glad you bought that 70. Hey, I forget it. It's the end of the month. They have to buy.
Yep.
It was on sale. It filled the gap. Very interesting day, but good call on that 70s. Seems to me that there's the trend is down, right?
Correct.
So as we rally like that, go back to the VWAP from yesterday, the 200 moving average on the half hour, all those confluences there's no follow through buying.
None at all. Really, all month. Going back to February.
So what should we move to next?
Let's
see. There's a couple good questions here.
Yeah, so we'll answer those. Should we expect big moves Monday, especially at MOC, with it being the end of the quarter? Should we expect it? Is it possible? Yes. I would actually pay attention to Andre's conversation with Peter Tuchman tomorrow. If you've been paying attention, the last 3 MOCs on Friday, Peter Tuchman has given out some interesting information that seems to just, and it's not financial advice, of course, but some interesting information about MOCs. He's built a career, is what he told us, on TopstepTV trading those. So I would pay attention to what he says. Andre's definitely going to ask him about the end of the month as well. So I would pay attention to that there, and his answer is going to be better than mine. I'll say that.
Okay, bullet traders. What happens if someone wants 10,000 lot filled, but there's only 1,000 available at one price or at a series of prices? My first question. And do market makers just run it in one direction until it gets the attention of someone on the other side? All right, a couple things on that. Market makers won't run anything. They take the other side. They're there, call them liquidity providers. They're there to take the other side of buying and take the other side of selling and get in between the bark and the tree, as they used to say. They're not there for direction. So they're they're taking the other side. So someone wants to buy 10,000, there's different ways to do it. I'm even bid for 10,000, which would most likely that not going to get filled. Because if you can see 10,000 resting on a bid, what would be the first thing? And the first thing I would do was pay one tick
Bid in
above
front of
it,
it.
bid in front of it. At least I got an out.
Right.
Because there's a high, it's almost certainly not going to get filled in one swoop. And if it does, okay, well, then I take a 2 or 3 tick loss. But that's what VWAP is for. And this is a really good question. VWAP, knowing that you can't just get filled at one price on a 10,000 lot. Hey, parse it out throughout the day. But they would, on a 10,000 lot, it's an institution. If you can, I used to get, I wasn't a 10,000 lot when I was in the grain. I ran a execution desk. We would get funds that would want to buy X amount of wheat, corn, or soybeans. And they just give you discretion. Well, what they would do, if you wanted to keep the business, if it was a buy order, you'd have to buy better than the average price of the day. And they measure you on that. So a 10,000 lot isn't, unless it was the copper yesterday, where it wasn't where it was a liquidation, like you're out,
Right.
and we're not waiting. And then, but most likely a 10,000 lot's going to be filled with a VWAP order. Something like if we remove that, if it was a buy side, if we removed the bars or the candles, that's what that would look like. Just a VWAP.
Good stuff, Coach. All right. One more question from JB. Would you say that people weren't particularly shorting into the gap, but more that there were no buyers to push price higher until it filled? If I'm speaking for myself, I was definitely shorting into that gap. And I think it was almost it's like a game of chicken almost, right? Because it's, hey, we're opening up the session. We know a ton of volume is going to come in and everyone's getting in short, but then that door closed really fast when we close the gap. So then you then also do get that shared psychology of shorter time frame traders saying what the gap's closed. Do we actually need to go lower? And that could be that volume push out of there as well. So I know for me, I was short in the first 3 minutes of the market being open for that gap fill. But it was, hey, I need to get out of this trade with profits because we said it had to fill. We did not say it had to trade lower than it. And was there a lack of buyers before the gap fill? That does make sense as well, and that's I think why we saw. Let's go back to the Nasdaq for example. I think that's why we saw that gap fill happen so quickly, right? Because there are no buyers here, right? If everyone's saying, "Hey, let's get in short, so we can close the gap," why would I bid in front of it, right? If that I wasn't ready to buy this before that gap filled for that reason, right? Because if it needs to fill, I can get a better price. So waiting for it, I think it's a combination of both. Great question though. All right, let's go over to gold. Gold, pew pew pew, making new all-time highs. All-time high in gold was today, Coach, 3071.3. 3071.3 all-time high in gold. What are we looking at on the daily chart?
Much the same. We talked about this. It was yesterday before. Just still trending, be consolidated, and blew out of that in what? Let's look in whenever. You know what's interesting here is, is it in rollover where March, April, which used to be called Gorilla Gold? And I didn't know why when I first started. I'm like, Gorilla Gold.
Mm,
April.
interesting.
In the pit, that really meant something, so you didn't confuse it with something else like 8.
Okay.
So anyway, and we're rolling into June. So I was just going to say that volume down there it rallied on lighter volume, but I believe it's in rollover.
It is
April's
in
coming in,
rollover.
so
I think the contracts expire tomorrow. We talked about once that rollover is completed, do we start to get directional again? We got a little directional today. We made new all-time highs. Um, it was an interesting way to kind of make all-time highs. Coach Ray and I were in the opening call looking for potential buys in this market. Here is last night's open, and as soon as it opened, they said, "All right, let's go." Buy it. Buying it through Asia, buying it through London. VWAP held the entire time as a support. And we came into the New York session open. And I do want to call this one a potential missed opportunity here, where in that opening call, we've been looking at opening range trades on the 1 minute. We did have a number coming out prior to that opening range. Sorry. We had a number coming out after the opening range. Right at 8:30, we had jobless claims and that GDP print coming out. So we were talking before we got on the show and said, hey, you know what? Because we have the print, maybe let's not get in a position before that print. There was an opportunity to take a quick. It wasn't the biggest trade, but 4 points before that print. But I think framing out the plan that way kind of kept us out of taking a trade after the print, right? Where VWAP, it was still valid. We left the opening range. VWAP was still short. I think at this point, there's still a ton of room to get into this trade for a potential pullback to the anchor view, the full session VWAP, where we actually looking to buy it. So missed opportunity there. Sometimes, don't talk yourself out of trades. But what are you seeing here, Coach?
The big middle finger at the lows.
Right here.
I missed that. Oh, I wasn't looking for. I was busy with something else. But this could be gold. It could be micro Bitcoin. It could be Nasdaq. It could be hogs. That's an exhaustion selling. This is in. I think it was in the dictionary under J trade, making lows of the day. Largest volume until that time, largest volume period. And then breaking the highs. VWAP above VWAP. VWAP leaves the range. It accelerates. I mean, if I had just one trade, this would be the trade. It's a high probability. And let's think of the fundamentals of why this happens. Exhausted selling. It was a big order. So before that, we had another big selling, right? We had a couple, but we kept on breaking the lows. There was one, but we never break the high of that candle. Then we get another one. We don't. So let's think empirically. What's happening? There's a seller in there.
Right.
The larger terms, it's either there was a seller, and then a market maker bought, and a market maker couldn't find anywhere else to sell it, so it's almost like a hot potato. Then they sold it, and then someone said, or an entity said, "Well, sell 500." And then it got real quiet. And then it breaks the high. It gets to be that simple. The problem is having the patience to wait for it, because that might not happen this week.
Correct. Yeah, this was at, this is an hour into gold being open, right? Right around 9:39 Eastern time, 8:30, 8:40 Central Time. So you did have to wait, but you know, we've seen this trade play out so many times that if you do wait for it, it's worth it too, right? Because we're talking about a 25 point, 26 point move from that high if you hold it. And am I going to hold the entire move every single time? No. Is that my expectation to do that? It isn't. But you know, there's a decent enough opportunity in this where I was talking to Dakota yesterday about, is there a benefit to identifying a trade setup that presents a specific amount of points and then waiting for those specific conditions to confirm before you take a trade, right? So instead of trying to say, I need to catch this entire trend for the day in gold to have a decent trading day, maybe I need to capture a 5 point move in gold. And I know that to a high probability, after a move like this, I can capture at least 5 points. Now, this is just, I don't trade this way, right? But I'm just thinking hypothetically. Hypothetically, could I say, hey, I know that I'm going to get at least 5 points from this trade. So I'm going to wait for it, take it, and take the 5 points. And then if I want to scale up, I start it with a 1 lot micro. Then I take the same exact trade setup with a 2 lot micro, then a 5 lot micro, then a 10 lot. But the trade setup never changed. The
Yeah,
Go ahead, coach.
yeah. Another way, I'm thinking of a card counter in blackjack,
Mm-hmm.
an ante and ante until the cards line up. So I could do at this point, if I can afford the risk, I do two units or 3 units on that trade. If I'm comfortable and I can afford that risk, I want to put I want to put 3 units on instead of one, because I've been that patient. It's a high percentage. Then if it goes to where it rallies, I get out of half of it and let see how far the rest can run.
Yep.
Either way, that's another way of facing, like you were talking about. That's a high probability trade. But to do that, you can't be screwing around with every other little trade.
Nope. Gotta be
And I think
patient.
you have, it's like, hunting. We talk about hunting, that this is the game. Okay, I've been patient. I've been out in the woods. I've been suffering through the cold. And all of a sudden, there's the 10-point buck. Don't screw it up, but you have something that's more higher probability, and you can put on more. And I like putting it on early myself. If I see that trade, I might put 4 units on. I'd have to go and, first of all, I'd have to go and see and back test what's the proper, how much. Okay, I will never go all in.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Question from Jim Carnes. Jim, you said, why would you not take a trade on the upswing? I think we are talking about that, right? Talking about taking this
Yeah.
trade, unless you're seeing a different upswing that we might be neglecting here. But what we're saying is, buying as the market is moving up here, closing outside of this range. If you and then B the Kiwi asked, now that the gap is filled, do we disregard it? What are the conditions to keep focusing on a filled gap as a support or resistance? I wouldn't disregard it because it's a price level that the entire market knows about, and there was some volume that traded there. So treat it. I would treat it like it's any other level. And I hate to say, did it need to fill today? It didn't. It didn't need to do anything. But now that it's filled, I think the psychology of that gap needs to fill maybe is gone out of the markets, right? But there were still market participants that executed orders at those prices. So those levels do mean something. I'm just not looking at it as a gap fill.
One of the creeds of gaps is once it fills the gap, it's free to move in either direction. That's age old. So it fills the gap. Like you said, it's free to move. So the tool we have now that I didn't have when I was younger is VWAP. Boom. Once it fills the gap, whatever that candle is, and a short-term candle, attach it. Now you got to put in any one of them because it could. It's a good question. You could have filled the gap and then found more selling. Doesn't It's not guaranteed to go up. Now it was going down that U-turn and VWAP. Yeah, I saw that U-turn. I was short. I wasn't paying attention to the gap. It didn't. It's not my part of my trading plan, but you'll see it in volume.
Yes, you
Is
will.
that is that
Just
copper?
this is Copper. Just a real quick update on the 150K subscribers. The team is looking at all of the submissions that we had. Uh, I think right now, and don't hold me to this, but the expectation is to start those sessions uh, mid-April, where each coach is, finding exactly what time they're going to be able to do each one of those sessions, and then scheduling it from there. The team is going to put marketing and emails behind all of that as well. So those will come out, but those expect to have those sessions starting sometime mid-April, and again, don't hold me to that. All right, if it's the end of April, uh, I'm just a guy relaying some information. Uh,
Well,
I don't make the decision.
we'll just throw shade at you
Yeah,
through
just throw the
the
shade.
internet.
There we go. All right. All right. Copper. We had that liquidation move yesterday. We're looking at a 30-minute chart here on copper. This was an all-time high as well. Uh, Pulling up the moving averages, coach, on the 30-minute. What are we looking at here?
Well, we're back under the 200 bar moving average. Um, we Boy, once we got under it, look at that. It just fell silent. Um, Now, with that alone, is it the top? Well, let's look at the daily and see if we have a island top. Let's remove everything, all the just a clean chart. Oh, okay. This is a rare beast. I have to take a picture of that on my computer. That's an island top. What does that mean? A blow off top. When we were talking, I didn't even see this. This is, and look at the it's decent volume, above the average, not the highest volume. But what happened? What is that candle again?
This one is a hammer.
Yeah, a hammer at all-time highs. And we saw that action of that, just most of that action happened in about what, less than a half an hour.
Yeah, it was like 6 minutes.
6 minutes. This gives more credence to my thought that this was a liquidation order. Like, you got to get out. You whatever entity, some hedge fund or CTA that was stubborn,
Right.
was forced out. But also on this island top, what else? That's a hammer with a wick, right? It's got to have that wick. Island tops are the body of that candle on the top at all-time highs doesn't have any action before it or after it. It's kind of on an island of it, right?
Right.
Look at yesterday's low. I'm marking it down.
Yeah, copper has been getting a lot of love lately. We hear a lot of traders talking about it. Placed a he might not ever place another one because on slow markets last night he placed a copper long 15 contracts. He won the trade and said I'm the best copper trader in the world. So he might he might not place another one, but it was a practice account. But
Oh,
yeah,
15 lot? Yeah.
yeah, he
Ooh,
15 lot in copper. He just was
that's
just.
not a small little that's not a small position.
But here was the trade though, right? So let's break this down on a shorter time frame now. Here's copper from last night because this is a market that's trading really well. I think this is a perfect example of, there's opportunity in a bunch of different places. We know gold is having its moment right now, making new all-time highs and things like that. But so is this market, right? There are micros in copper as well. And when notice we haven't talked much about nat gas recently, Coach,
Yeah,
right? We were talking about nat gas
every
what
day.
was it, all of the beginning of the year because it was a market that was in play. Is nat gas actually still moving now? I couldn't
Yeah,
tell
it
you.
actually
I
is.
haven't I haven't looked at a chart to trade it in the past month at least because there's been so much other opportunity in markets that I default to all the time. But there's opportunity in a bunch of different places, right? Here is the same exact trade that we talk about all the time
Yeah.
in copper. This was last night. I took this as a short yesterday. Shout out to Kevin, who was just like, Jay, isn't this an exhaustion move? And I said, it is. But when we traded up to the high of the candle, we actually didn't even get to the high, right? We traded up towards it and didn't test that high. VWAP was flat. So I took, which was a quick scalp short trade back to the 50% of that range, which held. This is preempting this trade a little bit because if I'm teaching somebody how to do it, wait until the candle closes outside the range and now this is your entry signal because this is confirmation. But when we trade up to the high, we can't get below 50% and we're holding that view up. This is a nice sign, coach, that at least in this shorter time frame, there's a quick potential long here. Go ahead.
Did it happen last night?
This was last night. Yeah, this was
That much volume?
yeah, this was nine. How many contracts was this? This was 900 contracts in a 3 minute period. This was at 8:15 Central.
Wow. That's that many copper contracts at that time. So it was something out of Asia, whatever news. I don't. But there is. That's a class. There we go again. I just want that trade. You can have all the other ones.
Just
They're all
give me
yours.
that.
Just
Give me
give me
one of
that
those.
one.
I'll take 100 of those.
I'll take the left side of the menu.
Right.
um,
It's like this guy comes in and orders the same thing every
every
single
single
day.
day.
It's just
That
like,
was
yep,
what movie was that? Was a really
every
um
day. Yeah,
every
I don't
day.
know, but I mean, yeah, if I could take this, and you could, right? So I can't even say that. I feel like there is an at the buzzer segment every day where we're talking about one of these trades, right? You guys in the chat, you can confirm that or not.
Is that a 2 to 1?
It's
Yeah,
like
with a night
51st dates,
session.
51st trades, right? Was this a 2 to 1? I think so. So at this point, the risk was 54. So the risk was about 20 ticks, and you got a 3 to 1 at the height of that move.
Okay, I can get a 4 to 1 because if I see that again, I'm doing 2 lots, 2 units. Make it in two
Give me two
units.
of them. Make
Yeah,
it
I'll
a
take
double.
2. I don't need it. That wow, that was in copper
That's in copper
at night. Look at that.
at night.
That sticks out.
Yeah. So again, guys, there's markets that are moving, presenting a ton of opportunity. It doesn't have to be the equities, and you know, apply a playbook. Apply a playbook. I think that's the one thing that we try to focus on here. These are all playbook setups. Even the short that I took was a playbook setup. Now, and I talked to my VIPs about this, coach. I shared them a little bit of the playbook that I have. Some trades, somebody asked about Chat GPT, and I had the Chat GPT conversation about my playbook so we can just hash it out and get it all on one sheet of paper. Some of your trades lead to other trades, right? So the conversation I had with Chat GPT is, hey, this is just a fade from resistance short. What trade does that turn into, right? Because this is counter trend price action. this fade from resistance turns into a potential long from support, right? Which one is the better trade? If this is a fade from resistance into exhaustion, the higher probability trade or the better, uh, how do I say this? The more meat on the bone trade is the long here. The short is a opportunity, right? But this is like, this is a throwing a check down pass if we're talking about football, right? Just a short pass, we're gonna get 1 or 2 yards. This one is, hey, we know that our receiver is going to be open down the field, and we're going to throw that. So when you're taking your trades, you have to have the expectations of the outcome of the trade based on the market structure that's in front of you. Uh, Hopefully, what I just said made sense and didn't confuse everybody. But
Makes sense to me.
this is
I
a
just
run.
want to buy it.
This this is a running play in football. This is a pass play, right? That's what I'm saying. Uh,
Oh wow! Now that made there that was brevity.
right? Yeah. Get to the point. And then we sell off, right? Then we sell off, which we've talked about already. This high volume candle, which was that liquidation move. The market is just rejecting there every time we get it for now. So really nice stuff. Sometimes the analogies get a little obscure. My bad. Um, uh,
That's all right.
all right. Any other markets we want to talk about? Oh shit! I just realized what time it was. Excuse my language, chat. My bad.
What did you say?
Uh,
Swear jar.
right. I just realized what
Oh
time it
fuck!
was.
I can't find my swear jar.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Lenny Bradford says, I don't trade volume, nor do I have it on my chart, but there are some really interesting concepts. And that's all it is, right? No one has to trade the way we do. I'm just going to analyze the markets the way I see it. But if there are concepts that you guys would want us to talk about, we're free to do that as well. Sometimes we pull up trend lines and things like that. I don't trade those, but we understand that not every trader trades like us. LE.
Thank God.
Right. Yeah. Thank God. And not every trade. Oh, wow. Look at this cattle chart. Is that an all-time high?
Oh yeah. That was another one.
Close
There
to
was
it.
so much opportunity that thing
Close
is
to
going to
it.
skyrocket.
Yeah. Whoa. I'll be on with Coach Hoop tomorrow on opening call. We'll talk about cattle.
Oh, there's an exhaustion trade right there.
Where's that? This one? Yep.
Yeah. New lows.
They're everywhere.
I'm done.
They're everywhere.
I'm done. I have to go start coding. I'm done.
They're everywhere. Don't say we haven't never gave you anything, chat. We're going to close the stream before we give away too much information. But oh, wait, we do the same thing every day. And seriously, we're joking, but we hope that, some of what we talk about here is helping you with your trading process. We see it all the time where traders are saying, hey, you know what? I got some clarity from hearing you guys repeat the same thing over and over every day and then implementing it. And that's ultimately the goal. It's the why we do this, coach. Again, we're both basketball coaches. If you wanted to know why this show is called At the Buzzer, Coach Paul and I are both basketball coaches. The buzzer rings at the end of every basketball game. But after that is where you go and watch film, right? And see how you've implemented or executed what your game plan is. So for me, coach, the idea is we want to run the same offense all the time as long as it works.
Read and react.
Read and react.
It's going to be the name of my book.
I got nothing else. Coach, you got anything before we go?
No, I don't. I've got to go run and start looking for exhaustion selling.
March Madness picks. I don't think anything matters. Duke is winning it all.
They seem to be, but I got Michigan State and Houston as the championship game, so I still have hope.
Nice. Let's go, Sparty. Trade well, manage your risk. I will talk to everyone on the opening call tomorrow. Remember, we got coaches continuing to do classes. Coach Hoop with his fundamentals class in 10 minutes from now in Discord. Then, of course, Coach Ray, who was on the opening call with me this morning at 6 p.m., Coach Vince at 7 p.m., and then Dakota at 7:30. No London call because tomorrow is Friday. One more day.
One more day.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Coach. Thank you, Andrew.
I got to go, but By the way, I'm gonna go run to the store now and load up on some meat before
Oh,
the
before
price
cattle
hits my
prices,
local butcher.
right?
Holy
Yeah,
wow.
it is going. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Hit that like button on the way out. We will see you tomorrow. Bye.